What's going on, guys? This is Rob, and if you're enjoying the content that I'm uploading onto my channel, then feel free to subscribe, and you can also offer suggestions on topics and characters and storylines and whatnot that we can have discussions on later on in this channel. Okay, so it's been a little while since we've done really Hickman's, I'm sorry, not Hickman. We'll talk about Hickman's Fantastic Four in this video, but it's been a little while since we've done Jeff Lemire's Old Man Logan. The reason why is because we've just been waiting for stories to wrap up. You know, remember, these come out monthly, so it literally takes like 6 months for a story to finish, which is kind of crazy. In this case, it only takes 3 because this is only 3 issues long, but this is basically Return to the Wastelands. Now, this is basically leading up to Jeff Lemire's story about Old Man Logan, where he has to go back and revisit all the most significant moments of his life. And that's designed for the purpose, I think, to kind of go back and retell his origin, because remember, you have the Old Man Logan story, but aside from, you know, the way he was dressed and a few of the little tidbits that we've gotten here and there, we don't really know the full life of that version of Logan. We just kind of know that he was part of the X-Men, he was basically tricked into killing them all, and that set off the Old Man Logan story. And so because of that, I think we're going to kind of go back, or at least we're going to have Jeff Lemire go back and give us all this old stuff. But what this does is it initially just kind of picks up in the Wastelands. Keep in mind, you know, that was the whole name of the area that Old Man Logan was in. That's the Old Man Logan area. It was really just like the Wastelands. And it was really kind of a cool story, because what it did is it gives us this whole thing of him trying to figure out where he's at and how he got here. Because remember, his mind's kind of in disarray. That's the big thing about this right now, is for Old Man Logan, he had, you know, been tricked into killing the X-Men, and then he had tried to make his way after killing the Incredible Hulk family, taking Bruce Banner Jr. as his own son. And then that led into the whole Hickman Fantastic Four, which had the idea that, you know, Bruce Banner Jr. would go on to basically fight Galactus, kill Galactus, and then use his body to be transported back to the modern day. We'll get into that here in a little bit. But there were a lot of things that went on with the character of Bruce Banner Jr. and with Old Man Logan himself. And so the idea is that he's basically bouncing back and forth, and he's trying to figure out how he ended up back in the Wastelands. But what this does is this coincides with the modern day. And that's what he's trying to figure out, is which one's real. Is he really in the Wastelands, or is he really in the modern day? But in terms of where he's at right now, he's actually inside of a space station. The crazy thing is he's basically been sent here in order to figure out what happened to Alpha Flight. And the reason why is because no one knows what happened to them. Keep in mind, in All New, All Different Marvel, where prior to the events of Secret Wars, Alpha Flight was just like Canada's superhero team that nobody cared about. In All New, All Different Marvel, they're basically part of SWORD, which is the Sentient World Observation and Response Department, designed to basically monitor threats from other worlds across the universe. And Alpha Flight is still a group nobody cares about, but they're not part of Canada. They're basically part of the ongoing Carol Danvers Captain Marvel story. Yeah, that. Anyway, so what we end up doing here is we basically find out that within the space station that the Brood seem to have simply gone awry. Now, for those of you guys who don't know, the Brood are this alien race in Marvel that are basically the Xenomorphs. That's essentially what they are from the Alien franchise. That's basically how they exist. 9 times out of 10, when the Brood are procreating, they basically plant an embryo in the body of their host, and then the embryo emerges and the host basically dies. It's just like the Xenomorphs. The difference is that sometimes the Brood will turn people into members of the Brood. Like, they'll literally take a human being and basically transmogrify them so that they become a member of the Brood race itself. That happened to Storm, if I remember correctly. It happened to a few other people here and there. They do that every once in a while, especially if that person has an ability that the Brood want. But what we do is we find out that, again, because this Brood's basically run awry, the Brood don't usually take prisoners. And so if the Brood have gone crazy, if they've basically shown up on this space station that Alpha Flight was sent to investigate and nobody's heard back, then there's a really good chance that Alpha Flight is basically killed off. Not only that, we actually end up picking up with Logan when he meets with Danielle Cage. Now, again, Danielle Cage is the daughter of Jessica Jones and Luke Cage, which tells us that she survived the whole experience with everybody kind of going crazy and everything, you know, going absolutely nuts. But the idea here is that as far as Danielle Cage is concerned, the baby was left with her. Bruce Banner Jr. was left with her to take care of. But somewhere along the line, the baby's gone and no one knows where it's gone to. And so again, this kind of bounces back and forth. It kind of goes back and forth in the sense that Sasquatch, one of the members of the Brood, has sort of gone crazy inside of this facility, and this indicates that the Brood have taken control of him. And so again, Logan's trying to figure out everything that's going on, but ultimately he ends up coming across Puck. Now, Puck was a long-term member of Alpha Flight and had been a huge ally of Wolverine for quite some time. And so again, this is Jeff Lemire giving us these little goodies. This is Jeff Lemire giving us these little tidbits, telling us that the history of Old Man Logan seems to be almost exactly like the history of the main Marvel Universe Wolverine before he died. And so Puck being part of Alpha Flight indicates to us that this version of Old Man Logan probably served as part of of Alpha Flight in the Old Man Logan universe. But with Puck being here, he's kind of like this guy that's going to guide Logan through, you know, basically saying, hey man, like the brood have gone crazy, everything went awry, no one really knows what's going on here. All we know is, or at least all I know, is that everybody seems to be being killed. The problem with this is that in the midst of Logan talking to Puck, suddenly Logan is basically jettisoned out of the airlock. He's literally just kind of yanked away, but then he has these last recollections that he remembers. And this is where the story starts to get back to some state of normalcy. Again, Jeff Lemire is kind of going nuts when it comes to these Old Man Logan stories. That's why I loved him, but he kind of goes crazy here. What happens is Logan begins to kind of jump back and forth a little faster than he was before with regards to the wastelands and what's going on here. But what we have is Logan, you know, back in the wastelands investigating everything that's going on and coming across what seems to be basically the spirit of Kang. Kang the Conqueror begins to talk to him, and Kang the Conqueror says, somebody screwed up time. Remember, Kang is this guy, you know, Nathaniel Rich is this guy that basically tries to use time to his advantage to conquer time itself, to really kind of make himself the absolute ruler of all existence. And so because of this, if Kang says somebody messed with time, then the indication is that things played out like this. When the Old Man Logan story ended and Old Man Logan had taken Bruce Banner Jr. and left him with Daniel Cage, the way things were supposed to go was that Bruce Banner Jr. would eventually grow up, he would join forces with a handful of the remaining superheroes or those newly emerging superheroes after all the villains were defeated and after their empire was torn down. 500 years in the future, the Earth would essentially be dying, Galactus would show up to consume the dying Earth, Bruce Banner Jr. and his guys would fight off Galactus, they would kill him, and then use the power cosmic to basically send themselves into the past, which picks up with Hickman's Fantastic Four. That's how things were supposed to happen. Somebody messed with time. Somebody screwed things up. And instead of that being the case, what ends up happening is Bruce Banner Jr. becomes a guy called the Warlord, basically just like the Maestro from the old Incredible Hulk stories. And so in the Wastelands, Old Man Logan is basically facing off against what is essentially Maestro, against the son of the Incredible Hulk. At the same time, back in the normal real world, back here in the space station, he's being told by Puck, the brood have killed everyone. There's no one left. Everybody seems to be dead. Not only that, Puck himself is being overcome by the brood attack because there's just so many of them. And so what ends up happening here is Jean Grey suddenly makes her appearance, and it looks like Jean Grey has been overtaken by the brood. Now, that's exactly what's confirmed here by Old Man Logan, that Jean Grey has been taken over by the brood race itself. And the reason why this matters is because the brood can now use the mind of Jean Grey for all kinds of crazy things. But with regards to Old Man Logan, she's the reason why he's having all these illusions where he's being yanked back and forth, and he's basically traveling back to the Wastelands, and he's in the modern day because it's Jean Grey just messing with his mind. None of the stuff that we're seeing here in the Wastelands is real. None of that stuff is true. The only thing that is true, the only thing that is real is the space station and Old Man Logan trying to defeat all these members of the brood. But it's cool because he keeps getting these little bit of flashbacks, and it's really just him being haunted by the ghosts of his past. The fact that he killed the X-Men still haunts him. The fact that he left Bruce Banner Jr. with Daniel Cage and has no idea whatever came of him still haunts Old Man Logan. These are things that still play a major role in how he views the world. While his underlying goal, while the main thing that he's focusing on is to make sure that the Old Man Logan story never actually comes to fruition, which is to say the villains never basically rise up and attack all the superheroes and kill them all. The idea is that because Jean Grey is basically making him relive all these things, the idea is that once he frees her and once the brood are basically brought down, you know, Jean Grey uses the hive mind of the brood to incapacitate them all. Old Man Logan says, I have to go back. I have to go back to the Wastelands. I have to go back to my universe. I have to go back and I have to find out what happened to Bruce Banner Jr. I have to find out what happened to that kid, because for Old Man Logan, it's all unfinished business. And again, this is really just a prelude. This is just kind of a quick little story that's thrown in here for the purpose of setting the stage for Road to the Wastelands, which again, will take him back to all that stuff, all that Old Man Logan stuff. And that's actually something I'm really excited about. I'm really excited to revisit the Old Man Logan universe, because I feel like all we've really gotten up to this point are just like these little things peppered in. We have what Mark Millar wrote, we have, you know, Brian Michael Bendis when he wrote during Secret Wars, and we have Jeff Lemire's Old Man Logan, and that's it. We have those three runs. If we haven't seen it there, it doesn't exist. And so what I'm thinking is that Jeff Lemire is going to go back and he's basically going to give us the whole story of Old Man Logan, the whole of his experiences, everything that he's ever been through, and he'll basically give us the chronological origin of his character. That's what I'm hoping we get. I don't know if that'll be true or not, but if you guys are new here to Comics Explained, make sure you guys hit the sub button to become part of the Rob Corps. If you guys enjoyed this video, make sure you drop a like and leave a comment down below. Let me know what you guys think about Old Man Logan. The art, I think, is absolutely incredible, but the story's really good too. It's just Jeff Lemire loves to bounce around. He loves to mess with us when we're going through and reading these stories. It's fun to see. It's funny to see, but it's also kind of crazy at the same time. But anyway, guys, we're going to bring this video to an end, and I will catch you all later. Peace.